TED Talks video might get interrupted. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, so I'm catching up on these old TED Talks, and so we got this Catherine Schultz. Don't regret. Okay, so I actually watched this one ahead of time because, these have not been great. So, yeah, I'll play some of it, and we'll leave it at that. But I was looking at the view numbers, and they're not that great. 70,000, 98,000, 35,000. It's a chick with a spider, which is kind of cool. 53, 40, 23, eek. 20, eek. These aren't great numbers. And it's sort of, this is kind of junk, but this is kind of well-produced junk. And, these numbers are depressing. Yeah. These are just depressing numbers. You'd think there'd be more people interested in stuff, but apparently not. So, yeah, these are amazing atheists does these numbers without trying. Spooky. Enough of that. It's so loud. It always is. You gotta turn it down. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, 1 of 1,000.
And that's Johnny Depp's shoulder.
Cool.
And that's Johnny Depp's famous shoulder tattoo. Some of you might know that in 1990, Depp got engaged to Winona Ryder. And he had tattooed on his right shoulder, Winona Forever. And then 3 years later, which in fairness kind of is forever by Hollywood standards, they broke up. And Johnny went and got a little bit of repair work done. And now his shoulder says, wino.
Okay, whatever. Wino forever. Alright, so we're going to move along. Somewhere in here. So the subject is basically regret. And so she just spends 15 minutes talking about regret, which we all kind of do this. And, but she got a tattoo and she didn't like it, but there's really nothing wrong with it. It's a pretty minor tattoo. But anyway, which is weird. But whatever, the conclusion basically is just wallow in your regret, that somehow it's okay. And that we should regret things that harm other people or hurt ourselves or do other things. And it's like, well, that's fine, but that really isn't very psychological. The truth is things like guilt and regret, if you understand something's wrong, you really don't need to feel like shit. So there's a difference between feeling like shit and understanding you are shit. So I guess, to me, it would have been a much more interesting talk if it was more about mechanisms that might help people recognize that it's really good to have an understanding of what's going on. But it's not too good sometimes to be burdened with the weight of understanding. That, it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't make you stronger sometimes. And it doesn't make you capable of doing better in the world or functioning even if you're kind of weighted down, if it's burdensome understanding. So, and just, being disappointed with oneself is not, regretting opportunities missed. It's kind of hard to avoid doing some of that. So it just wasn't very helpful. That's all. It's just a story about this is how I got to my regret, and this is how I made my regret fun, or something like that. But she didn't really explain how. It just really wasn't very useful. So I'll play some more. Hopefully we'll play some more. Apparently we won't play some more. YouTube doesn't want to play some more. There we go.
But if you want to be fully functional and fully human and fully humane, I think you need to learn to live not without regret, but with it. So let's start out by defining some terms. What is regret? Regret is the emotion we experience when we think that our present situation could be better or happier if we had done something different in the past. So
I don't even know if that's correct. Yeah, I don't really know. If we know, well, whatever. Yeah, but you never get to see the alternatives. So, but you can always notice when you did something that wasn't up to your standards or whatever you want to call it. Oh, bee flying in the house. Okay, that's what it is. Wasp looking for some trouble. I wonder what the fuck was bouncing around on the ceiling. Anyway, yeah, I do that. I might regret not doing something about that because he might sting me in the head. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. What was the subject? Oh yeah, regret. Yeah, I mean, I could regret not saying something differently, taking a different angle on this video. But there's some regrets that are going to be harder to live with than other regrets because of the impact. And there's some impacts you can't undo it. There's no erase button, and that's what makes it tough. Yeah, sometimes you can regret. Sometimes you can, have an accident. It's just a big fucking accident. Yeah. All right, let's do some more of this. Blah, blah, blah.
The component of regret is basically denial. When I went home that night after getting my tattoo, I basically stayed up all night, and for the first several hours, there was exactly one thought in my head, and the thought was, make it go away. This is an unbelievably primitive emotional response. I mean, it's right up there with, I want my mommy. I mean, we're not trying to solve the problem. We're not trying to understand.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, like I said, some of these problems you can't solve, okay? It's regret. It's done. It's happened. It blew up. It's over. You can't do anything but, pick up the pieces. But again, you're going to be, it's like grief, regret. These are closely related kind of emotions in terms of how they affect you. And it's very hard to not be affected because the thoughts are there, the missing for the better world that could have been or should have been, or the better state. I mean, if you do something stupid and get your leg cut off, it's going to be hard not to be living with that regret because it's going to be reminding you every day that you got something to regret. All right, play a little more.
We're incredibly used to not having to face life's hard realities in a certain sense. We think we can throw money at the problem or throw technology at the problem. We can undo and unfriend and unfollow. And the problem...
Yeah, well, whatever. Maybe that's how you're going through life. I'm finding it exactly the opposite. I feel totally powerless to control any of it. It's depressing. Yeah, do something about that. Yeah.
The problem is that there are certain things that happen in life that we desperately want to change, and we cannot. Sometimes instead of Control Z, we actually have zero control. And for those of us who are control freaks and perfectionists, and I know whereof I speak, this is really hard because we want to do everything ourselves and we want to do it right. Now, there is a case to be made that control freaks and perfectionists should not get tattoos. And I'm going to return to that point in a few minutes. But first I want to say that the intensity and persistence with which we experience these emotional components of regret is obviously going to vary depending on the specific thing that we're feeling regretful.
Right. So this isn't very useful because every one of the regrets is different. So blah, 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 blah. There's just no point in talking about it as a single word.
All of us who've experienced regret that contains real pain and real grief understand that humor, and even black humor, plays a crucial role in helping us survive. It connects the poles of our lives back together, the positive and the negative, and it sends a little current
whatever
of life back
that
into us.
means. What, is this some sort of
The third way that I think we can help
yin-yangy thingy? Yeah, I don't think so. Oh, please. Yeah, I mean, you get way past the old black humor thing. There's a point where it's just not funny anymore.
With regret is through the passage of time, which, as we know, heals all wounds, except for tattoos, which are permanent. So it's been...
Yeah, well, time just doesn't, okay? I mean, that's just a nice cliche, but it doesn't heal all wounds. Some wounds, it just picks at them and 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 picks at them until sooner or later you just say, that's the last pick. Fuck this shit. Yeah, no, I mean, so it doesn't heal all wounds. Some wounds it heals, some wounds it doesn't heal. That's the truth. Okay? It doesn't heal all wounds.
been several years since I got my own tattoo, and do you guys just want to see it?
Oh, let's get to it. Well, anyway,
But I felt like it encapsulated both of these ideas in one.
See, there it is. It's a little north, south, east, west, because you like to travel, blah, 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 not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. This really doesn't make you understand life. I mean, a regrettable tattoo on your shoulder thing that isn't that hideous. But whatever.
Simple image. And I thought it might serve as a kind of permanent mnemonic device. Well, it did. But it turns out it doesn't remind me of the thing I thought it would. It reminds me constantly of something else instead. It actually reminds me of the most important lesson regret can teach us, which is also one of the most important lessons life teaches us.
Let's hear it.
And ironically, I think it's probably the single most important thing I possibly could have tattooed onto my body.
Great.
Partly as a writer, but also just as a human being.
Let's get to it.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
If we have goals and dreams, and we want to do our best, and if we love people and we don't want to hurt them or lose them, we should feel pain when things go wrong.
Well,
the point isn't to live without any...
Yeah, well, that's really not the subject, right? That's more to do with regret revolving empathy and somebody else's circumstance, which is just even worse. So that's almost another second subject too, right? Isn't it? I mean, that's, the expression of dissatisfaction with a circumstance because something you care about is being hurt is one subject. Another subject is your own capacity to find motivation to play a game that is just constantly, you do your best to throw the dice correctly, and you get those snake eyes. There's just too many. There isn't enough control here. We don't have enough control. It's way too sloppy a ride for everybody just to be sitting and I think it's a low battery. I'm not sure, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. I think we're done. Yeah, I think we are. So we'll move on to the next video. Regrettably, we have to transition. Or something like that, right?